we have in the studios one of the greatest Indian cricketers in the shape of Vijay Hazare, who in the 1940s broke several records in Indian cricket. He was the first to score a triple century in Indian cricket and the only one to record two scores over 300. He holds with Gul Muhammad the world partnership record for any wicket with 577 runs. He was the first Indian to reach both 1000 and 2000 runs in Test cricket and still holds the Indian record of completing 2000 runs in the least number of innings. Actually, he completed that in 43 innings. He was also the first Indian to score a century in each innings of a test, and he was the first Indian to score 1000 runs in a domestic cricket season. That was in 1943-44. Vijay Hazare was a graceful batsman who batted in a classical style. His defense was impregnable, footwork superb, and technique perfect. Endowed with great patience, he had unwavering concentration and ideal temperament. Time and again, he was India's batsman in a crisis. He was India's sheet anchor. His cover and on drives were the best in contemporary cricket. He dominated the Indian cricket scene in the 1940s and early 1950s. In addition, he was a capable medium pace bowler too, and he operated with the new ball. Off the field, Vijay Hazare was known as a man of few words, a modest, shy, and a gentlemanly character. He carried his great fame lightly. So, we have such an individual here. You will be here for quite a long time, but for a change, you will use your tongue and not the cricket bat. I am going to ask you about your whole cricketing career. I hope you won't mind the questions as you did not mind the bouncers in your playing days.
I shall try to play with a straight bat as far as possible.
Well, I shall bowl the first ball. When and where were you born?
I was born on 11th March 1915 at Sangli.
Where is Sangli situated?
Sangli is situated in South Maharashtra. It is now a district place. In my days, it was a small princely state.
Tell me something about your family.
My parents raised a family of 8. I was third in the batting order, but I was the first son. In all, we were 5 brothers and 3 sisters.
Did all the brothers become cricketers?
No, only 2 of us became cricketers. I was one and Vivek was the other.
Did you get encouragement from your parents to play cricket?
Yes, my father Samuel Hazare was a school teacher and a cricketer. He was an opening batsman. I accompanied him at the cricket matches and started taking interest in cricket myself.
Did any teachers in your school encourage you to play cricket?
Our games teacher Hanmantrao Bhosle molded my early cricket. He taught me the basic things of cricket. He was very painstaking and did not boast of modern coaching methods. He was a modest and sincere man. I owe a lot to his guidance.
Did you have any noteworthy performances in your early school career?
Yes, in a school match I scored a century. My father was a spectator in this match. He went home proudly, gave the news of my century to the family. He also gave me a cricket bat as a present.
Very good. Did you play other games besides cricket?
Yes, I played football too. In fact, football gave me a break in cricket.
How was that?
A football team from Kolhapur played against our side at Sangli. They liked my way of playing football. One of their members was a rich man. His name was Gopal Rao Uprekar. When he went back to Kolhapur, he spoke about me to the prince, who was the nephew of the ruler of the Kolhapur state and a collegian.
Who was that prince?
He was Vikram Singh Pawar, and he was also a heir apparent of the state of Devas Senior in central India. He was a keen sportsman too.
Was he a cricketer?
No, he used to play some cricket. He was a tennis player and also a good footballer. He wrote to my father asking him to send me over to Kolhapur to continue my school education.
So, did you go to Kolhapur?
Yes, Prince Vikram Singh gave me an accommodation in his own bungalow and in addition gave me a scholarship. Thus I was free from my family worries and I could devote my time to playing both cricket and football. However, outline studies did not interest me much.
You mean routine studies did not interest you much? You were more at home in outdoor games. Good. But how did your schooling in Kolhapur help in cricket?
I played regularly for cricket team of Rajaram High School where I studied. Kolhapur staged cricket matches in which players from all over India participated. In this way, I saw C.K. Naidu, Professor Devdar, Vittal, and many leading cricketers of the day in action.
Oh, did you imagine that one day you would play with C.K. Devdar and Vittal?
I was lucky to play with them at Kolhapur, and that is more. I got Vittal's wicket in a match.
How did you progress from here?
I progressed at the right time. In the winter of 1933-34, an official MCC side was to tour India. A 3-day match was to be played against MCC at Pune. We called it Pune in those days, although it was to be a match against Maharashtra side. It was called Pune 11. The reason is that Maharashtra did not have an association till then.
But how could you play for Pune 11 as you were Kolhapur based?
Players from Maharashtra were to be selected. I was called for the trial. I did well and was chosen for the final side.
Was this your debut in first class cricket?
Yes, the match became a 2-day fixture as the first day's play was washed out by rain. But it was my first big match.
How did you fare in this match?
MCC batted first. I was put on to bowl as the first change by our captain Professor Devdar. In my first over I got a wicket. It was that of Barnett. In each of my first 4 overs I got a wicket and I ended with a figure of 4 wickets for 40 runs. I also held a catch to dismiss Walters, who captained the MCC in this match.
You mean he was not the captain on the tour?
Mr. Jardine was the captain of the tour. He did not play in this match.
What did you notice about the English cricketers?
I noted that their approach was thoroughly professional. They took their cricket seriously. Varieties bowling made it clear that it is difficult to face class spinners. Walters showed that batting can be an art too.
I believe India played their first home test on this tour.
Yes, and I heard it on the radio. In those days, the radio was novelty and commentary on unusual things.
How did your success in the Pune match affect you?
When I returned to Kolhapur by train, I was given a hero's welcome. At a function, speeches were made about my future. I received a number of presents.
How did you react to all this?
I felt quite happy, but I had a great difficulty in making a suitable reply. I was then just a schoolboy, and even later, speech making was not my strong point. I was always more happy performing with the bat and the ball on the field. However, I decided that I must do my best if I have to maintain the title little name I had made.
Did you soon get a chance to do well again?
Yes, the national championship was started in India. It was named the Ranji Trophy after the great Ranji who died in 1933. Maharashtra had their own station and fielded a team. I was in it.
How did you fare in the first Ranji Trophy match?
Maharashtra had to play Bombay at Pune. Bombay batted first, and I was successful in bowling. I was a right hand medium pace bowler.
What were your bowling figures, by the way?
I bowled 41 overs and got 6 wickets for 73 runs in Bombay's total of 286.
Oh, that was pretty good for a beginner. How about batting?
I was lucky to strike form with the bat too. I batted at number 8 and was top scorer for my side with 65 runs. In my first Ranji Trophy match, I shared a century partnership. It was with our captain Devdha, but we narrowly lost on the first inning. I was, however, happy that I did well, both with the bat and the ball.
Did you continue to play for Maharashtra?
No, the Prince of Devas, Senior, became the ruler of his state. He appointed me as his ADC, so I left Kolhapur and went to Devas. I became eligible to play for Central India in 1935-36.
Who were the players for Central India?
The great C.K. Naidu was there as captain. The Prince of Alirajpur also captained the side on occasion. On his recommendation, I got into the team. C.S. Naidu, Mushtaq Ali, Bhaya were all from Indo. Wazir Ali and Dilawar Hussain also played at that time.
Oh, the names make quite a formidable combination. Did the Central India side prove quite strong?
Unfortunately, no. All of them rarely played together, and there were many fractions in the side. All this made Central India's record in Ranji Trophy poor.
But did you get a chance to shine?
Luckily, in the match against Rajputana, our cricket captain, CK, sent me at number 4, and I made my first Ranji Trophy century in 1935-36.
So after this good beginning, did this establish you in the side as number 4 batsman?
No, exactly, but I owed this promotion to my innings against the visiting Australian side. I batted at number 9 and helped Bhaya to stand up over 90 runs. We made 380 and forced the tourists to follow on a short tour to Sindh with a side called Freelooters. I scored 2 centuries.
After that, India toured England. Were you in the running for a place in the unofficial test against Ryder's Australian side?
Not to my knowledge, but my name was mentioned for a place in India's side to tour England soon afterward. But there seems to be a big hitch.
What was that hitch?
A.S. de Mello had recommended my name, but one of the selectors objected on the ground that I had never played in the Bombay Quadrangular. It was then the major tournament in Indian cricket, but the hitch was that being an Indian Christian, I was not eligible to play for any side.
So it was a case of heads you lose, tails I win. How did you react to this?
I learned all this after much later. So my non-selection did not bother me.
The 1936 tour to England has gone down in history for the Amarnath affair and also for dissensions in the team. How would you have managed under these circumstances?
I would have stuck to my cricket. I would have been a very junior member of the side. All my life I have always kept away from cricket politics. Here I would have done the same.
Fair enough. When did your big chance come?
In 1937-38, Lord Tennyson's team brought his English side to India. It played five unofficial tests and I was selected for three of them. It was my international debut, though not in the official test. Playing for Central India against the tourists at Indore, I took 6 wickets for 54 and this won me a place in India's side.
Where did you make your test debut?
I played my first international match at Lahore. It was then part of undivided India. In the second inning, I made 31. It was next to top scorer Amarnath's 44. In that match, when Ram Singh and I were batting, there was an earthquake. It was rather an unusual occurrence for the first test.
Quite thrilling for a first test. But did you experience anything unusual after this?
Certainly, it was the most unusual event in my cricket career and it changed my entire career.
You say event, what was that?
It was the arrival in India of Clarrie Grimmett, the Australian leg spinner. Actually, he came on a coaching assignment to Prince, but I gained the maximum advantage of this coaching.
Just tell me all this in detail.
Grimmett was invited by Vijay Hazare, who in those days was known as Raja of Jat. The princes could afford to invite foreign cricketers to coach them. The Raja of Jat and my employer, the Devas ruler, were brother-in-law. My employer wanted me to pick up a few things from Grimmett, so he sent me to his brother-in-law. Grimmett coached us both.
Did Clarrie Grimmett coach you both about bowling or batting too?
No, the Raja of Jat was a slow bowler and he wanted to learn googly bowling. He got his lessons in bowling googly. I also wanted to learn googly, but here was a
What was the difficulty?
I was medium pace bowler. Grimmett discouraged me from changing to slow googly bowling, but he found that I could become a good batsman, as I was always to his company and was all the time asking him questions. I followed him everywhere and soon I became to be known as Grimmett's shadow.
But what coaching in batting Grimmett gave you?
He bowled to me with a tennis ball from very short distances. He made me play all those balls and practice my stroke. We practiced this way for hours. This was I learned to play strokes correctly and my footwork improved a lot. Grimmett and I played in a number of practice matches. At the end of the match, he would hold a post-mortem of my inning and point out if anything had gone wrong. He also gave praise when due. I was able to correct my mistake because of his coaching and discussion.
What about your stance? He does not seem to have done anything to change it. What did Grimmett have to say about it?
Grimmett had noticed my unusual grip, but as I was used to it, he did not try to change it. He thought my doing so, it might affect my whole play and confidence. He made only minor adjustments in my grip and stance. He said the grip did not matter. What was important was to make correct strokes.
Yes, it did. Even Bradman's grip did not please the purists. Did you have Bradman-like performances after coaching from Grimmett?
In January 1940, I scored the first ever triple century in Indian cricket. So you may call it a Bradman-like performance. Before leaving for home, Grimmett had told me the words I still remember: Vijay, I have very high hopes about you. I am sure you will live up to them.
Well, you did live up to Grimmett's expectations. Can you tell me something more about that triple century?
After playing for Central India for 5 years, I had come back to Maharashtra where I was born. During the 1939 Pentangular, Professor Devdar had suggested me that I should again play for Maharashtra. Devas ruler also agreed to this, and I decided to turn out for my native state. Against Baroda, I scored 316 not out at Pune. My innings lasted about 7 hours.
But how strong was the Baroda attack?
Oh, it was quite good. Their main bowler was C.S. Naidu. He had a very successful Pentangular recently, and in the previous match against Navanagar, he had taken 13 wickets. Jagdale, the Prince Khanderao were also useful Ranji Trophy stand bowlers.
Did you score quite fast throughout the innings?
On the last day, I scored at the rate of a run a minute and got 100 before lunch. In 2.5 hours play, I made 151. I think that was quite fast scoring.
Yes. Did Grimmett know about your record breaking feat?
Yes, I wrote to him about my record. He wrote me back congratulating me and hoped I would keep it up.
How did your record affect you?
After the initial feelings of glory was over, the record set me thinking seriously. Having made it, I had to live up to it. Otherwise, everyone would think it was a fluke.
In what way did you justify your record?
In the next match against Southern Punjab, I scored 155 in the first inning and a 50 on the second. Thus, I proved I could play in a crisis too. We won the crucial match as it took us into the final match we later won.
How did your performances help Maharashtra that year?
In our matches, I scored 619 runs with 2 centuries and 2 half centuries. I also took 20 wickets. 15 of my wickets were clean bowled. Once I took 7 wickets in an inning and once 5 in an inning. But ours was a team effort as Professor Devdar, Rangnekar, Sohoni, Bhandarkar all batted well, and our bowlers Patwardhan and Jadhav bowled well.
Well, that was in the first year. But Maharashtra won the Ranji Trophy again. And did you have the same success next year too?
Yes, Maharashtra won the Ranji Trophy for the second time in succession in 1940-41. I scored 3 centuries in scoring 164 not out against the Western India states. I added 342 runs for the fourth wicket with Sohoni. In the final, my 137 against Madras went a long way to our victory.
Were you happy in your days with Maharashtra?
As far as cricket was concerned, I was happy. But when my employer, the Devas ruler, joined the army, I was left without a job. I could not get employment in Maharashtra and I was in a fix.
What did you do then?
Sardar Ghorpade, the captain of the Baroda side, approached me with an offer for a job in Baroda state as a ADC to the Maharaja Pratap Singh Gaikwad of Baroda. I accepted and migrated to Baroda. I stayed forever at Baroda. I still have there.
You seem to be destined for a life in the princely states. Any comments about it?
It is true that I always was connected with princely states. Born in Sangli, educated at Kolhapur, first employed at Devas, and later settled in Baroda. I maintained connection with princely state all my life. There we regarded courtesy as second nature and believed in politeness all the time. State patronage was the best encouragement for sportsmen.
Unfortunately, courtesy as a common nature is not frequently encountered these days, and hardly anybody believes in politeness all the time. But we'll let it pass. How did you start in Baroda cricket?
In my first year for Baroda, I did not shine much, but in the next season we won the Ranji Trophy. I did well both in batting and bowling, but my best innings that season came in the festival match at Bombay. India's leading cricketers were divided into two sides. One was captained by C.K. Naidu. I was with Mushtaq Ali, C.S. Gul Muhammad, and Vinu Mankad. The other side was led by Devdhar and included Merchant Amarnath Rangnekar, Ibrahim Sohoni, and Amir Ilahi. The match provided record breaking cricket. In my side, scored 703, and our opponents replied with 673. I made 264 and added 302 for the fourth wicket with Gul Muhammad.
Tell me something about your early life in Baroda.
My job was to act as ADC to the Maharaja Pratap Singh Gaikwad of Baroda. In addition, I had to coach the young Yuvraj. I found him a good pupil. He showed a great promise at cricket. I spent a lot of time with him. Later, he became the Maharaja and a great administrator. He proved a very considerate, helpful, and good employer. I was happy in Baroda as his employee.
Well, I can understand your sentiments from the quiver in your voice because Pati Singh Rao was your employer and your association with him lasted for a number of years. Well, now we'll turn to some pleasant things. Were you married by the time you joined Baroda?
I got married in 1943. My wife Pramila comes from Indo. Her family was interested in arts.
Was your wife interested in cricket?
Yes, she also proved lucky for me. She watched me play against Muslims and the Hindus, and twice I made a Pentangular record.
Just describe your record.
Against the Muslim, I scored 248. In doing so, I surpassed Merchant's tournament record of 243. My side called the rest met the Hindus in the final. Merchant got his record back by scoring 250 not out against us. When we batted, I was out for 59 in the first inning, but we followed on and I regained the record by making 309.
Oh, quite a seesaw for a record. But did you reach any other landmarks in this record breaking spell?
My score 309 out of my side's total 387 gave me the highest percentage of runs by scoring a batsman in his side's total. My brother Vivek and I added 300 for the sixth wicket. It was the highest by two brothers and also an Indian record for the wicket.
So you must have been in the seventh heaven.
Not exactly. For one thing, my side lost despite of my big efforts, as cricket is a team game. In other is that the crowd that had gathered near the players' pavilion wanted me to make a speech. This was more difficult than making runs. Finally, I made a short speech and invited the crowd to watch the Bombay Baroda Ranji Trophy match, were here after a few days.
So this seemed to be a tryst. But what did you give to the spectators for the Bombay Baroda match?
Merchant made a century for Bombay. I too scored 100 for Baroda. But Baroda lost in the first round. This means no more Ranji Trophy matches during the season for me, and I was in a good form.
But did you get a chance to play other matches during that season?
Yes, I played a few festival matches later in the season.
But did you do equally well in those matches?
Yes, in a festival match at Pune, I scored 223 and 87. With this, I set up a record in Indian cricket.
What was that record?
I became the first Indian to score 1000 runs in domestic season. I did so in just 4 matches. My scores were 248, 59, 309, 203 and 87. I made one more 100 later in the match at Mysore. In my days, we had played more than half a dozen matches in a home season.
So how did you fare in the next season?
I started with captaining in the first class match for the first time. I was appointed captain of the rest side in the Pentangular. I scored 74 and had a big partnership with Satasivam of Ceylon, but we lost. I did better in the match against C.K. Naidu's side.
In what way?
I scored 200 not out. Merchant also made 200, but he retired after scoring 201. Our partnership was worth 382. It was then the highest in India for any wicket.
Did you do well in Ranji Trophy too?
Against Maharashtra, I scored a century in each innings for the first time in my career. My scores were 127 and 162 not out. But we lost the next match to Bombay. At the end of the season, I made one more century. It was in C.K. Naidu's Golden Jubilee match. I made 100 before lunch in that inning for the third time in my career. I scored a century before lunch. Normally, I was regarded as a slow scorer, but this being a festival match, I scored fast.
Quite right too. But it seems from this record that you struck your best form between 1940 to 1946, which were the war years. What have you to say about that period?
My only regret is that during those years I was not got a chance to play abroad or a test cricket. I could have done equally well against foreign teams and in tests.
So it seems case of lost opportunity over which you had no control. And then when did the first tour abroad for your side came in your name?
In 1938 I had made a tour of England with private side called Rajputana. The only match of note on the tour was against Cambridge University. I scored 117 against them. In 1945 I toured Ceylon with the Indian team, but it was an unofficial tour. The wickets in that country were quite substandard. I made one score of 70 on that short tour.
Yes, Ceylon was not a member of the International Cricket Conference that time. They called it in Imperial Cricket Conference in these days. Ceylon only become a member recently.
An Australian services side visited India in the winter of 1945-46. After playing victory tests in England, India played three unofficial tests against the visitors. I played in all the three. In the first, I took 5 wickets and scored 75. In the second, I made 65. India won the third after the first two were drawn. In the last test, I was out for a duck. It was my first duck in 10 years.
That must be some sort of a record. But then, how did you fare in the Ranji Trophy during that season?
I was consistent and scored nearly 500. Three times I made scores over 80, but not a single century. I did well in bowling by getting 22 wickets, but Baroda, despite being lucky to make up to the final, did not win the Ranji Trophy.
Why do you say Baroda were lucky to make up to the final?
Against Bombay, we won on the toss as the match could not be finished in 4 days. Bombay were better placed. In the semi final, we again won on the toss, but the match against Southern Punjab ended in a tie. It was the first tie in India.
So the third time did not prove lucky. Well, with peace being restored after 45, did you at last get a chance to tour England with an official Indian side?
Yes, in 1946, India toured England. It was the first post-war tour by our country. I was in the 16th selected with the Nawab Patodi Senior as captain.
In what capacity were you selected?
I was in the side an all-rounder. I was to be a batsman on the upper half. I was also to be a new ball bowler of medium pace.
Did you find the English conditions different from those in India?
Vastly different. The English wickets were slow, green turners. They changed from season to season according to the weather. We encountered a very wet summer and the wickets were also wet. In those days, the wickets were not covered. The light in England in cloudy weather was not sufficient good. Only occasionally we had bright sunshine. The weather was also very cold.
So you seem to be facing a lot of difficulties. But did you find that modification in your batting methods were necessary in such changing conditions?
Very much. I was essentially a forward player. On English wickets, more back play was necessary. I was a driver of the ball, while on sunny days I could indulge in my favorite cover drive off the front foot. Most of the time it was dangerous. The morning ball needed greater attention and suitable technique.
Also, the moving ball was difficult to pace, wasn't it?
Yes, frankly speaking, no. I scored over 1300 runs and had a 2 average of 49. But I should have scored many more runs and more hundreds than the just 2 I made.
So your performances were not up to your expectations. Any reasons for not doing better as you hoped to?
I did not want to offer excuses, but I do feel that I was called to do so, to do a more bowling on long tour. In India, we did not bowl for so long period at stretch. The other reason is that I did not have a fixed position in the batting order. In Indian cricket, I always batted at number 4. Here I was moved up and down in a match even open, but unsettled me. The unusual weather conditions further added to my troubles.
What were your outstanding performances on the tour?
My 244 not out against Yorkshire was my best effort. Yorkshire is the strongest county, and it is said that a run against Yorkshire is worth two against any other side. Yorkshire had beaten us in the first match, and this return match we were 30 for 3. When Vinu Mankad and I came together, we made 322. It was the highest partnership ever against Yorkshire. My 193 not out against Middlesex was another memorable effort for me. It gave me my first century at famous Lord's cricket ground. In my first match at Lord's, I had made 94 and I narrowly missed being the 16th to score a century on first appearance at Lord's. My 44 in the Old Trafford Test was one more effort. I like to recall against all odds. Modi and I added 74 in equal time. Even this a six off a no ball from Betzer. Against combined services, I topped score with 6-2 not out and then took 7 wickets. But as the first day's play was washed out by rain, it was treated as a 2-day match. In fact, it was originally a first class match.
So, how did you compare your 1938 visit to England with the private Rajputana side with this official tour in 1946?
The 1938 visit was just a private club. We played only few first class matches, but English papers noted some of my performances and called me India's future player. Our tour had to be abandoned halfway, though because of mismanagement. By contrast, in 1946, we became the first cricket side to travel by air. This was on official Indian tour. I met old masters like Hobbs, Hendren, who praised me. Our return sea journey was most by luxury liner. In 1938, I watched the first two England Australia tests and learnt a lot by watching Bradman, Hammond, McCabe, and others. I, however, never imagined that I would one day captain India in a test in England.
You said that your return journey in 46 was almost by luxury liner. How did it compare with your return journey in 1938?
We made the return journey by on cargo steamer. By contrast, in 1946, we became the first cricket side to travel by air.
I can understand how difficult it must have been to travel by a cargo steamer. Well, that is one hazard. But now let us go to the next one. Did you maintain the same form on return from England?
Our home season soon started. We played 3 Indian in England and rest of India matches. The India was to find out a new players for our tour to Australia next season. I scored a century in one match. I made another 100 in the zonal tournament, but in the Ranji Trophy, I shone mainly as a bowler against Maharashtra. I took 8 for 90. It was the best bowling performance of my whole career. Only in the final I did very well in the batting.
Did you do anything special in the final?
Yes, in partnership with Gul Muhammad, I set up a world record of any wicket. We added 577 runs for the fourth wicket. This was at Baroda on a matting wicket, and our opponents were Holkar.
But what was the earlier record?
It was 574 runs by Worrell and Walcott in 1946. It was to last only 1 year, but ours has lasted till today. Gul Muhammad scored 319 and I made 288.
Like your earlier record of that triple century in Indian cricket, did you get an opportunity to prove yourself after this record?
Early next season, we toured Australia. I may mention that our was the first cricket team to tour as representing India after independence. I did well on the Australian tour. I was also a vice captain on the tour.
How did you travel to Australia?
We again traveled by air, but this time the whole team flew together. On our trip to England, we flew in batches as the air booking was difficult. This time there was no trouble about that.
Did you strike form early on the tour?
Yes, I did quite well in start matches. I started very early century against South Australia. Then I made 80 against Victoria. My best came in the match against New South Wales when I scored 142. I had to face both Lindwall and Miller, who were at their fastest. In that match, I captained most of the time as keeper Amarnath retired due to injury and did not bat at all.
So, how did you fare in the tests?
In the first three tests, I failed. Rain interfered in all of them and turned the wickets almost unplayable. Luckily, the fourth test at Adelaide, we free from rain and I struck my best form.
What do you mean by best form?
I scored my first test century. We were facing hug total of 674. I had bowled and fielded for 2 days, but in batting I found my touch. In the second inning too, I scored a century and thus I became the first Indian to score a century innings of a test. My scores were 116 and 145. They were against the fastest attack in the world, and Australia also had good spinners. Both centuries were made in a crisis. In our second inning, 6 batsmen failed to score. All this made me say that I struck my best form. I scored a century on successive days.
Oh, jolly good. But did you receive sufficient praise for your great efforts?
More than sufficient. First, Bradman congratulated me after the match was over. Sir Robert Menzies, who was Australia's Prime Minister, especially praised me. All the leading critics like O'Reilly, Mealy, Fingleton, Whitington praised me very highly in their newspaper comment. But the best praise came from someone else.
Who was that someone else?
None other than my Guru Grimmett. He lived in Adelaide and had specially came to see my play. Actually, I had a double responsibility in the test. I had to do well for myself and my side. I had also to prove to my Guru that I was worthy pupil. Luckily, I was successful in both.
What did Grimmett say to you this time?
Grimmett met me after the test. His wrinkled face was full of smile when he congratulated me. He told me, Vijay, I am very proud man. Today, later he invited me to dinner at his place. I felt I had repaid my mentor in the Indian way. I could say I paid my guru Dakshina.
What are your other memories of Australia?
I was thrilled to meet Bradman in person. He scored very heavily against us, but I became a only bowler to clean bowled him in the whole season at Sydney. I bowled him for only 13 in the test, and I sent a bell flying about over 60 yards. I found the Australians very hospitable and appreciative. I was surprised that they thought me a stylish batsman. My other memory is about the touching gesture by Australian spectators before the last test in Melbourne. started the two teams line up to observe a 2-minute silence in memory of Mahatma Gandhi's. Spontaneously, the spectators in all the stands stood up too and joined in the silent tribute.
It must be very touching. How did the team fare on the tour as a whole?
We lost 4 of the 5 tests. Australia were vastly superior in all the departments. We could have won the Sydney test, but rain deprived us of that win. The two tests it caused our defeat. In tests, Vinu Mankad and Adhikari with Fatkar did very well. In test matches, our captain Amarnath batted like a champion, but he failed in tests. He and I topped 1,000 runs in mark on tour. Our batsmen failed against fast. We did not have India's strongest side with us as some leading players couldn't make it.